in a factorial design with two factors, or in other words, two independent variables, we can look at several things. We can look at the overall effect of one variable, ignoring the other one. We can look at the overall effect of the other variable, ignoring the first one, and we can look at their interaction. When I talk about the overall effect, we call that the main effect of that variable. So remember the priming experiment where participants had to respond with a button press to a word that was every time preceded by a photo. The photo could be of an alcohol-related thing, or it could be a photo of a plant, and then they were shown a word, right? One at a time. That could be either aggressive or neutral. So two variables, the photo type, right? Alcohol versus plant, and word type, aggressive versus neutral, and our dependent variable was reaction time. So remember, we have 4 cells, aggressive words preceded by an alcohol-related photo, neutral words preceded by an alcohol-related photo, aggressive words preceded by a plant photo, or neutral words preceded by a plant photo, right? These are our 4 cells. So if we want to look at the main effect of phototype, the overall effect of phototype on reaction time, ignoring word type, we would average across these 2 cells and these 2 cells to, in this case, get this, right? So this would be the effect of phototype on reaction time, the main effect of phototype on reaction time. And as you can see, these are really similar. So there's no main effect of phototype on reaction time. If we wanted to look at the overall effect of word type on reaction time, we would average across these 2 cells to get this one, and these 2 cells to get this one, right? So the main effect of word type would be this difference. So once again, you can see that that's not a huge difference, 2 milliseconds, right? So there's no statistically significant main effect of word type on reaction time. So this is the reaction time for aggressive word types, regardless of what picture preceded them. This is the main reaction time to neutral word times, regardless of what phototype preceded them. Right? So again, this is the main effect. These cells, which again are the average of these 2, and this one is the average of these 2, these cells are called marginal means. So this is these are the marginal means for word type, these are the marginal means for phototype, and the difference between these, are the main effects. Right, so as you can see, right, the main effect of phototype is 1 millisecond, that's nothing. And the main effect of word type is 2 milliseconds, which is also nothing, right? So there was no significant main effect of phototype on reaction time, and there was also no significant main effect of word type on reaction time. The other example we talked about was a study of the effects of alcohol on aggression in light and heavy men. Remember? So we had 2 factors here, body weight, right, light versus heavy, and amount of alcohol, right, a drunk group versus a placebo group. So once again, we had 4 cells. Remember, light men who were not drunk, light men who were drunk, heavy men who were not drunk, and heavy men who were drunk. And the dependent variable was the shock intensity, if you remember. So once again, we can ask first about the main effects, right? We want to know the main effect of body weight. That ignoring whether people were drunk or not, was there a difference of body weight on shock intensity? Right, so once again, we average across these two cells, and we average across these two cells to get the marginal means here. And we average across these two cells and across these two cells to get the marginal means here. So as you can see from these main effects, heavy men are slightly more aggressive than light men on average, ignoring the effects of alcohol, right? That's the main effect of body weight. And the main effect of drinking conditions showed that drunk people are considerably more aggressive than non-drunk people, ignoring body weight. So that's the main effect of drinking condition. Right, so these are called main effects. The effect of one variable just ignoring the effect of another variable. Keep in mind that's just what it's called. That doesn't mean that it's the most important effect. And so you could think of it as the overall effect of one variable. So in other words, the term main effect may be a little bit misleading because the main effect is not necessarily the most important finding. It's just what it's called by researchers and statisticians. Above and beyond the main effects, researchers want to look at the interaction between the variables. That is often why they do a factorial design. Right, so the interaction is likely the most important finding or the most important piece of the data that researchers want to look at. So what's an interaction? Like I said in the previous video, an interaction happens when the difference between conditions in one variable depend on the level of the other variable. So, for instance, in this experiment, right, the difference in reaction time to aggressive and neutral words differs between the alcohol and plant phototypes, right? This difference is different than that difference, okay? Or this difference is different than that difference. It's kind of the same thing. So I hope that makes sense. So for instance, this difference is 551 minus 562. That's minus 11, right? And the difference between this one, that's 559 minus 552, that's 7. And of course, researchers have to statistically test for the significance of that. But in this study, that was statistically significant. Right? So that's how you can spot an interaction in a table like this, where you see mean findings per cell. Right? When you see the cells in a table like this, that's how you look for an interaction. Is the difference between these two cells different than the difference between these two cells? Or, if that makes more sense, is the difference between these two cells different than the difference between these two cells? Or remember this study of the effects of cell phone use, so being on your cell phone versus not being on your cell phone, and age, younger drivers versus older drivers, on braking reaction time, right? Again, we have 4 cells. An interaction would be, is the difference in reaction time between being on your cell phone and not being on your cell phone different for younger drivers than for older drivers, right? In this study, for younger drivers, the difference was 912 mean reaction time minus 780, right? That's 132 milliseconds. For older drivers, that was 1086 minus 912, which is 174 milliseconds. And as you see here, despite the fact that this was larger, it wasn't actually statistically significant. But that's what an interaction is. Is the difference between these two cells different than the difference between these two cells. And if it is, and that's statistically significant, then we find an interaction. Now, when data are presented in a little table like that, you can spot an interaction by comparing cell means, but interactions are much more obvious in a graph, which is why researchers will often present their data in either a line graph or a bar graph. Personally, I find line graphs a little bit easier, but not everyone agrees, and it's kind of arbitrary, right? It's a little bit of a personal preference. In a line graph, as I mentioned in the previous video, you can easily spot an interaction because the lines aren't parallel. Here they're almost parallel, which is why this interaction wasn't significant. But here you could clearly see that the lines aren't parallel, indicating an interaction. You can still get the same information from a bar graph, right? So these two bar graphs represent the exact same data as these two line graphs, right? Even in the same colors. So, right, aggression-related words in dark orange and neutral words in light orange, I guess, or yellow, I don't know. Right, same here with alcohol photos on the left, plant photos on the right, same here. So you look at the differences between the differences. So is this difference different than that difference? And yeah, keep negatives in mind, right? You don't look at the absolute difference, but keep negatives in mind. Right, so you can see that there is an interaction. In this case, right, this difference and that difference don't differ a whole lot. So I keep saying the differences differ, and that's a bit of a mouthful. It's also not particularly intuitive, and of course there are better ways of describing it. What would those be? Well, it kind of depends on the situation. But one trick would be just to describe the pattern in the graph. First for one level of one variable and then for another level of that variable. So here you would say, when people respond to aggression-related words compared to neutral words, and they have been preceded by an alcohol-related photo, people are faster to aggression-related words than neutral words. However, we find the opposite when these words are preceded by a plant-related photo. When preceded by a plant-related photo, people respond faster to neutral words than to aggression-related words. Right? You just describe what's happening like that. In a different situation, you could say something like, alcohol makes people more aggressive, especially heavier guys compared to lighter guys. Right? That would describe this reaction. Interaction. Or in this study, remember the chess children study, you'd say child chess experts can remember more chess pieces than digits, but adult chess novices can remember more digits than chess pieces. Right? That describes this particular interaction. So again, I want to emphasize, don't get confused on the term main effect, right? The main effect does not mean most important effect. It's just a term. It's just a term that means the overall effect of one variable. In fact, when a study shows main effects and interactions, the interaction is almost always the most important part of the study. In fact, usually scientists will set up a factorial design because they want to test for an interaction. So that could be main effects, meaning there could be differences in the marginal means, but the most exciting part of the study is usually the interaction. Or the most novel part anyway, right? In the case of the study with the heavy men, the effect of alcohol on aggression was already understood. The novel part of that study was the difference between heavy and lighter men.